I'm Roy Spencer from Mercedes Heritage, and today we're going to look at the structure of Pagodas, 230, 250, 280 SLs. I've wanted to do this forever. I've tried to educate my clients over the years. I'm an educator, and today I'm going to show you how to be an expert in analyzing Pagoda sheet metal. If over the next 10 minutes, we're going to learn a lot about how to look at these cars and make sure you're not buying a car that has some damage, rust repairs, or big damage. So first area we're going to have a look at is the nose, and we hear a lot about these little swage lines that are adjacent to the headlight doors. Oh, does a car have the swage lines, you know, to the nose? And they're not really that important because they often get knocked off when body shops are painting these cars and they don't go back on. So it's not the end of the world if these swage lines aren't there. And often you can tell when they've been added in after the fact. They end up being really long, or they're too sharp, and they just don't look like the pretty subtle way Mercedes did it at the factory. In fact, I'm much more interested in the structure behind the nose. I want to see behind the nose and look at the seams and so on to see if they're all the original attachments and spot welds are behind the nose. That's most telling. So I'm going to open the hood and we're going to look behind the nose here and see what we can find. So we're going to look for two seams here. There's a vertical seam on this side of the back side of the nose, and one on this side. And this seam is where there's a little tab that comes forward from the inner apron, engine bay structure, and it's welded, or it's spot welded to the nose. And if you know where to kind of feel around, you don't even have to look at it, you can just feel it. So there's about a 3-inch vertical edge here that you can feel, and it should be really clean, and spot welded. And this car has that seam on that side, and feeling the passenger side here, I feel the clean seam. And of course, you can look at it, and you have to get a flashlight to look at it, and you'll see an image of this backside here, images, so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So this car has its original nose, never been damaged, no crude gas welds behind here, so this car has its original nose. Next area is we're going to go look underneath the hood. A lot to be learned under the hood of a Pagoda, a lot to be learned. And if you know what to look for, it takes just minutes to figure it out. So we're going to look underneath the hood here and go further. So let's look at under the hood here. There are a lot of things that are important to note under the hood, and if you know what to look for, it's really quick and easy to figure out what sheet metal here is correct and original. Really important. And this 7120 SL is quite original underneath here. It doesn't look like it's been altered that much. So the first thing that's really easy to do is figure out if the fenders are correct of the car. Really important. Pagodas with all original sheet metal, that's the car you want to buy if at all possible. So we need to figure out what's correct and what's not as far as sheet metal up front here. Like the seams on the back side of the nose that I talked about earlier, you can do the same thing here. You don't have to look at anything. You don't have to see anything. You can just feel this edge here, this edge where the front fenders roll 90 degrees into the engine bay, and they're spot welded to the inner apron. And the inner apron is this piece of the structure here, this large piece of the structure here where all this hardware is connected to. So you can just take your fingers and just gently run your fingers underneath this edge and see what it feels like. It should be very clean. It shouldn't have any big, sharp, jagged edges. And you'll have the sensation that there are two pieces of metal very carefully joined together. And there you go. That'll tell you 99% of the time that this fender is correct to the car. Of course, there's a visual cue as well. If you look, you should see a very clean, symmetrical pattern of spot welds. Very few gas welds in the structure of a Pagoda. 90% of the components were put together using spot welds. So you can feel the spot welds here, and then I can look across here, I can see that pattern of spot welds running from this top edge of the inner fender area all the way down to the hood hinge area. So really easy, and once again, you can just feel it. You don't necessarily have to look at it. Next thing you want to do is to make sure the hood's correct. That's important. Replacement hoods or shuffled hoods, used hoods, they never fit quite right. So the original hood is important on these cars. And Mercedes attached body numbers to the hoods of the Pagodas. So if you look at this driver's rear corner edge of the hood here, you'll see a 3 or 4 digit number, usually 3 or 4 digit number stamped. And the correlation here is that they stamped the body number, that's the body number, and they stamped the body number on this rectangular data plate, which you see on the inner engine bay area, just adjacent to the brake booster. It's a rectangular plate that's screwed onto this bracket here. And you look at the very lower right-hand corner of this plate, and there's the body number. And on this car, it's correct. The hood number here matches the body number on this plate. So it's got the correct hood, and so it's going to fit to the car correctly. Really important. The reason we buy and like Pagodas and a lot of other Mercedes this era is because of the jewel-like fit and finish. And they only have that fit and finish in nice, tight, even gaps around the car if the panels are original to the car. So that's super important, super important. So we've got an original hood, original fenders, original nose. So that's half the battle. We'll go to the back of the car and we'll check some other panels here, make sure everything's correct. Let's also take a quick look at the door jamb area. This is a driver's door jamb of this 280 SL. And I always like to look at the hinge bolts where the door is mounted to the A-pillar here. I'm always looking for undisturbed door hinge bolts. That means that the car has never been apart, the doors have never been off the car. And that's a big deal, because then they're going to be fitting exactly the way Mercedes assembled the car originally. Also, a little bit above here, there's a seam at the very, very rear edge of the front fender where it's attached to this A-post area. There's spot welds here. When fenders get changed and they have to change the entire fender, then all these spot welds disappear and they end up with rude gas welds, lumpy gas welds. So that's another area that's really easy to see, and there are a few pictures that'll go through here that you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Another area easy to look at, if you know what you're looking for, just have a quick look. It's just another indicator of if the car that you're looking at is unmolested, unaltered, undamaged. So it is easy, it's right there in plain sight. So following on this notion of the body number, Mercedes also stamped the lid cover, this hard panel covering the soft top well. They also stamped a body number on this panel because there was a bit of hand fitting when it was manufactured. And so it needs to stay with the car that it was manufactured for. And so they stamped the body number right on this inside edge of the driver's side of the lid cover. And this also matches what we saw on the hood and what we saw on the data plate under the hood. So far we're doing well here. Original hood, original fenders, original lid cover. Interestingly, Mercedes also stamped the transmission plate with a body number. And the transmission plates are always body color. So this car has a 158 white gray transmission plate underneath the car with the body number stamped in that, which is really interesting. Mercedes was really diligent on identifying bits and pieces and correlating and documenting the build on their cars. To my knowledge, the only other panel that has a body number stamped on it is the hardtop. So that's another area to look at if you're thinking about buying a Pagoda. Make sure it's got the hardtop that was built for the car and installed when the car went new, and look for the body number on the underside edge of the hardtop. And on this car, it's correct. So we have everything's matching on this car, and this is why I acquired this car, is because I knew this, right? I rarely buy cars that have sheet metal replacement. So I'm confirming what I already knew before I acquired this car. I think the next spot we want to look at is the trunk area. Trunk area, kind of dull, seemingly dull area, but really revealing on these cars, really revealing. Well, what's the big deal here? It's just the trunk. It's black, and it's doesn't look too exciting, but it's a great indicator as far as the structural integrity on these cars. And this happens to be one of the finest, least worn, no oxidation, perfectly preserved trunk, Pagoda trunk, I think that I've seen in my the 350 Pagodas I've bought. So this is spectacular in the realm here. So, and what we're looking for, again, are spot welds and clean lines. I'm going to attach some pictures that you'll see coming up. The rear edge of the trunk, where it meets the front edge of this rear body panel, it should be clean, clean, clean on either side, very straight. And once again, we're into a lot of spot welds, nice symmetrical spot welds on either side of that seam. You have to look for rust here. This car amazingly has zero oxidation. They all took on water. There was a flaw when the original factory weather strip mounting, and it let water in here. It pays to take everything out of the trunk, so you can see the entire floor. Pull the spare wheel and tire out, pull all the mats up to really get a good look, because you don't want to have a big surprise here. You know, trunk floors can be replaced, but they never look right, and they're a pain in the neck to do, expensive to do. So this is one pristine, world-class Pagoda trunk area. You can actually see all the hardware. It still has its gold cad bright plating intact. So it was in an environment where there was no oxidation and wetness here. So this is kind of the standard for a Pagoda trunk, but really important. Of course, when a lot of the cars had rear end collision, and when they got fixed, they were rarely fixed correctly, and you would see wrinkles in the trunk. You'll see, again, gas welds here or oddball sealer here that the factory didn't use. So it pays to look here carefully. It just takes a few minutes, pull everything out and have a good look, and just see that the rear structure of the car is intact. These little gussets here, they're gussets on either side of the trunk here. They're spot welded to the underside of the quarter panel, and that's another cue you would look at when quarter panels get changed. Then this is rude here, and it would be either sometimes no welding or gas welding here, rude gas welding here. So that's it for analyzing a Pagoda. I think everybody's now going to be an expert. Next time you approach a Pagoda, you'll be able to look around it, and within about 8 minutes, figure out whether it's a good one or maybe something that you don't want to deal with. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something here about Pagodas. They're wonderful cars. If you liked it, give it a like and maybe pass it on to a friend. And do subscribe to my YouTube channel. There'll be many more videos, lots of education and lots of fun. So I appreciate it.